Welcome back to the Draft FC podcast, the podcast website and YouTube channel dedicated to all things official Draft FPL. My name is Mitch and I'm your host, once again joined by my co-host Draft FC Kiran as we continue our Road to Draft Day series with a team-by-team preview. As I said in the last one, we are definitely not recording 5 minutes after the end of the last one because Kieran's got a whole new who you repping now? Is that Japan?
Japan from 2018 World Cup.
Very nice. I'm sticking with the boys. I haven't changed. So yeah, if you missed the last episode, then go and watch that once you finish watching this one. We're basically going up the alphabet, so lots of good stuff in the one before. I would expect by now, because this episode I'm guessing will be out over the weekend sometime. I hope beyond all hope that the game is now live, and so we can very much get into things. And if that is the case, then again, talking. Projecting into the future, the Draft FC website should be very much alive and kicking. So if you are a little bit behind in your prep, or if you simply just want to use us as another voice, as some other rankings, some other information to add to your own solid preparation work, then head over to draftfc.co.uk and check out everything that we've got on offer there, which is not only our rankings, not only the predicted lineups, but also as the drafts take place, we'll be distilling that into our average draft rankings as well, which, to my knowledge, you will not be able to find anywhere else. But in the interest of time, in fact, I haven't said hello to you yet, Kieran, even though I have been talking to you all morning.
Yeah, glad to be on another pod. Now repping Japan, yes, I am. But yeah, glad to be here again, and let's get stuck in.
Cool. So today we're going to be doing Brighton, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, and Everton. I expect the majority of the minutes in this episode will get taken up with Chelsea chat, but we'll try and be as neutral as we can.
Yeah, a fully biased view of Chelsea squad and chances in FPL.
So let's kick things off first with Brighton. And again, for those listening on the audio, I would urge you to try and watch this on YouTube, because we'll flesh out most of it as we speak. But particularly with the Chelsea chat, there will be some little men moving around on the screen to show tactics and whatnot. But yes, Brighton, you can see their squad on screen now. Anything you want to jump in with right off the bat, Kieran?
I'm not particularly hot on Brighton in terms of FPL. In terms of where I had them placed in the league this season, I had them 8th. So I do think they'll still be pretty strong. And Mitch, you can mention where your thoughts were.
In 7th, which is pretty strong, and I had them in 6th.
Yeah, and so we do think this is a very strong Premier League team, but game to game there is a fair bit of rotation. Like you could probably look at like Minte and Mitoma as people that are pretty nailed down. Welbeck probably pretty nailed down these days as well, and Ruta, given that João Pedro has moved on. So yeah, that's the reason I put him as my one to watch. So maybe like the forward positions a bit more settled. That defensive line of the midfield positions, literally, you think that Van Hecke and Dunk are the main ones, but game to game, there's movements, there's rotation, and they're actually not that great as fantasy assets. You can see like Van Hecke got 87 points last season, and I don't think it's really he got 12 extra points, so 99 for a defensive asset. That's not someone you're going to be holding on to over the course of a season. These are just players you're going to rotate in and out based on the game that you have. So yeah, I'm not really hot on anyone. Baleba, even though he got 30 extra points, 117 across the season, which again is, as we're talking, the new standard might be a 140, 150 for your midfielder. So I wouldn't be holding on to those assets. The only one that, Hinshelwood, I was interested whether he was classed as a defender, but he's not. He's classed as a midfielder. See, I'm not really hot on any of these players. Mitoma and Ruta, now that he's started 19 last season, if he starts more like 35, that's hot property because he is a very good player. So that's the only one I've got my eye on. Anything I've said that's you really disagree with Mitch, or what are your thoughts?
No, I mean it's reflected, isn't it? I mean it'll be reflected when you hear where we've just put where we think Brighton might finish in the Premier League next season, and where some of these players are then going to end up in the draft ranks. It seems a total mismatch, and I think if you could give me the main 11 right now, with players who are sort of playing or starting 28, 29, 30 matches over the season, then they well, I mean, you play that game with any team. That's the game we're playing ultimately, isn't it? Fundamentally,
Yeah.
it's not to say that these players aren't worth picking up. It's just trying to know which combination it lands on. Rutter is one that I'm always got my eye on for Brighton because of the amount of money. I mean, it was sort of upwards of £40 million, which for Brighton might as well be £100 million signing, because we know what they're. Whenever I think of Brighton signing a player, there are a few. You've got the likes of Dunk, etc., who are kind of stalwarts in there. Veltman, March, players that they've really wrung all the potential out of. Whenever I see Brighton signing a player, they will be signing that player in the knowledge that they're going to try and sell them for double the amount in 3 years' time. So if they're trying to turn, so this is just this. So if you take that concept, if they're trying to turn Jorginho Rutter into an £80 million player, which I don't think is impossible. I don't think it's impossible. I think he could be an absolute monster in there as a regular number 10, and we've seen it at times. Then he has to sort of be one of the central figures that they build the team around. So I'm quite high on Rutter because I just think he will play a lot of the minutes. But then it's unfortunate because I'm also massive fans of Nkizo and Gruder. Gruder is versatile. I mean, he could also cover the right wing minutes. But again, I expect Minter to play majority of those minutes. We haven't put an at-risk flag on Mitoma because I think a lot of the rumours seem to have calmed down a bit on Mitoma. So and again, he's pretty nailed on at left wing. So yeah, it just falls back to what you said. It's really nice, shiny players to have, but are they going to get on the pitch enough? Unfortunately, not. I did add a little at-risk flag to Van Hecke. Again, it sounds like some teams are sniffing around him, but it's potentially that they're being put off by the amount of money that Brighton are then quoting when teams are inquiring, which doesn't surprise me, to be honest, because I don't think he would be high up on their list of players that they'd be happy to sell right now. It's the midfielders and the attackers that seem to churn through their factory.
No, it's a good. I've actually not seen the rumors recently. I knew that maybe there was like rumors around Man City previously, or maybe Man United, but even someone like Liverpool is looking for centre backs. That could be someone. This is a player they could look at. So yeah, I agree with you on all that. And Ciso, I think he's such a great player, but I think he ended up getting injured at the wrong time a couple of seasons ago. I think he showed some good flashes of it at Ipswich, and maybe he'll be rotated in and out and come on and score the odd banger, but I can't consider him for FPL just given the lack of minutes that he's probably going to have. And Ruter should be. Yeah, that's the only other consideration, because the other one that we've not got on here is Buonanotte, who the first half of last season was really good for Leicester, and then Van Nistelrooy decided to completely ruin that team, drop him, and just lose about 15 games in a row without scoring a goal. So I think Buonanotte, if he ends up at another Premier League side, could be one to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on then to the big boys. Yeah, so I can already see Draft FC Kiran's got his mouse on the screen ready to go. This is really where the audio listeners are going to lose out on. This is like Monday Night Football. This is Neville and Carragher on the tactics board. I don't know which one's which. We'll let the viewers decide. Yeah, lead off, Kiran. Talk to us about Chelsea.
Yeah, so I've put an 11 here. I don't think it's going to be the 11 that starts every game. I think this is an 11 I've chosen based off probably the most minutes over the course of the season. But again, similar to how we have it for other teams like Arsenal, you've got your certain players that are probably going to play a lot of the games. Look at someone like Colwill, who is just the starting left centre back, and Cucurella is definitely a starting left back, but I think the key for Chelsea's season this coming year is they need to think about the Champions League. Last season, especially in the first half of the season, when they were playing the best in the Premier League, they were able to rotate their 11 every midweek Conference League game. That's just not going to be the case this time. So I think Maresca has to pick and choose a little bit around when he plays his best players, including Cucurella, Caicedo, Enzo. There are good backups for these positions now. Chelsea have been signing, and especially like Pedro, I think could even play in the Palmer role for an odd game here and there when there's a really big Champions League game coming up. So that's the thing that's slightly worrying and something that draws my eye to Colwill as a defensive asset. In terms of Chelsea defense as well, I'm pretty hot on it. I think despite their attack they became a bit more like Arsenal towards the end of last season, where their attack suffered at the hands of like having a really good defensive shape and stopping teams from scoring that many goals. So a good way into the Chelsea backline is Colwill. We'll talk about Cucurella's attacking exploits in a minute, but what are your thoughts on sort of Chelsea's defensive assets, Mitch?
Yeah, well, I'm actually. What are your thoughts on the where you've got Chalobah penciled in there at the moment? So, I mean, how much of that do you see
Yeah,
holding down? I mean, I haven't heard any. One of the rare places in the squad, I haven't really heard any rumours of new additions coming in, and there's
oh, it's because we already signed loads of players for that position, so don't
yeah,
worry.
Khalifa floating around somewhere, isn't he? You got
Yeah.
Tosin in
So
there.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, is it? Do you think Chalobah's
yeah.
the sort of the main one?
He is, but never doubt Chelsea to go and sign a bunch more players. So we actually have for right centre back, we've got those two. Fofana, who's probably the first choice, but just injured so often that you can't really class him as the one that's going to get the most minutes over the season. Tosin, I don't think he's mobile enough to play in that role for Maresca. But he is a good player to bring on, especially and in certain games he will play. We also have a right centre back called Saar that we signed for Strasbourg. So he's hanging around. We have Anselmino, who we signed from Argentina, who came
Just
in January.
be saying any names now. I would.
Yep. Josh Achampong as well,
Oh yeah,
who Maresca is Maresca's adamant shouldn't leave, but I think should, given the fact that we have so many right centre backs. Um, yeah, so I do think at this moment, given not been any rumours around Chalobah, he is the guy. He played the Club World Cup final, but you never know. Chelsea really do like to mess him around, so who knows what will happen
all right.
by season
Let
start.
me if let me take on the Carragher role for a second here, and I'll do like a bit of my idiot's tactic board, and then you can come in
Okay,
and sort of clean up and
okay,
just say how rubbish it is. Now, one of the names who I'm gonna for those, yeah, this is where you kind of need to be watching. So I'm gonna just bring James in over here for a second, and I'm also gonna bring in this new man, Jarell Hato. Is it Hato?
yeah. I don't know.
I think it's. We'll call him Hato because Hato seems a bit doesn't sound great
Yeah,
for him at the moment. I'm going to bring him over here. So there's been lots of like, again, it's like, oh, typical Chelsea. Why are they signing this geezer when they've got Cucurella? What I'm guessing is going to happen, and you see it a lot. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head. Feel free to jump in. Where Premier League teams have left and right fullback spots who kind of complement each other, and it's often you'll get pairings form. So it's like if he plays on the left, he will play on the right, and if he plays on the right, he will play on the left. And I've got a kind of idea that we're going to see James and Cucurella almost forming a pair, and Gusto and Hato forming a bit of a pair. Because Hato is a centre back come left back, so he's almost like a Colwill mould, but probably a bit more comfortable, kind of moving up and getting into attack. So if I move, oh, here we go. If I get Cucurella out the way for a second, and I get Gusto out the way for a second too. So what we could then see, because obviously James then tucks in here, you can have, Neto or whoever it is kind of high and wide here. Palmer's doing his thing in that kind of half space there. This player could be João Pedro, could also be blimmin' Xavi Simons, who you're about to sign as well,
Yeah,
by the sounds of it.
or Gittins.
Yeah, and yeah, and then Cucurella we know is comfortable operating up here as well. So because what all these teams, and particularly the Pep teams, are trying to, or a lot of teams are trying to fall into is like a 2-3-5 shape in attack. So usually the two are your two centre backs, and then the three is your two midfielders plus one of the fullbacks tucking in, which we've seen. I think it kind of ruins James as a fantasy asset now because he's we're not seeing old fashioned James of or not often anyway getting into these kind of positions, but yeah, so that's how I would see that. And then obviously if you flip that around, if you get rid of James, you could have Hato kind of tucking in here, making sort of a 2 or a 3, with Gusto, who we know does like to bomb on, forming the width here. That I don't know what that means for Neto, whether he does just flip to the other side, or whether you then have someone like a Gittins playing. So again, it has a knock-on effect with the combination, and then also the combination of forwards. So the templates may start to emerge. As I said, that could all be a load of rubbish as far as you're concerned, but that's kind of where my head's viewing all of this at the moment.
No, I think it's a fair shout. I've watched a lot of Chelsea, so I can give you a bit of a rundown of how it all like how it looks defensively and in attacking shape as well. So if I just take these players off for a second, let's take Gusto off and get Neto back in. And actually let's take Pedro out, not his shirt. Let's take his whole thing out, and let's drop in someone like a Gittins. Yeah, let's drop him back in. So defensive shape is something like this, probably more like a 4-4-2. So like Neto drops in and Gittins drops in, and you defend like that. The way Chelsea and Maresca is very adamant that his teams need to play is a 3-2-4-1. So you get your wingers that maintain the width. Someone like an Enzo is expected to drop into that space. And actually, when Palmer dropped off towards the end of last season, Enzo was picking up a lot of the slack. And if I just look at his stats for the end of the season, we've got 6 goals scored, 8 assists, and 135 points. Pretty good going for someone who basically starts all of the games. Mitch can probably look up if he had any extra points that he should have had as well. So what that means is that
Not many.
yeah, great. So and then it will look something like this, which, agreed with me, is not great for someone like a James who is just tucking into midfield and not getting those sort of like bombing down crosses in, which he used to do when he was playing wing back. So I think I've said it before, I think James as an asset is not really great anymore. Maresca is also very adamant not to play him in that attacking sort of like wide role because it's so like it's a risk to his injuries. So he's either tucks in as the right centre back here, or he is the defensive midfielder there. So that protects him, but I still only think that he'll play minutes in the most important games. Him and Lavia are like two of Chelsea's best players, but they just get injured too often, so they won't play the majority of minutes. So that's something to consider. In terms of what you were saying about the pairings, I think for the majority of teams that's the case. But Maresca expects basically all of the players to be able to do all of the things. And I think that's why Cucurella is such an important asset for this Chelsea side. And the reason for that is that they'll line up something like this in most cases. For maybe 60 minutes, this is what will be happening. And like the defensive team gets settled, they're like, I know where everyone is, all good. It's yeah, I know what's happening. And instead, what will start happening is they will switch to that 2 that you mentioned for a time, and Cucurella will suddenly be like, yeah, I'm just now operating like here. I'm bombing into this space, and no one's there to mark me because it was the sort of winger that was protecting me before, and they've suddenly gone, oh well, I'm not defending that space, and Cucurella just decides, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna attack this space. It was actually really good for him, and he ended up scoring 5 goals last season in that position, and I think that is what Enzo uses him as. At certain points of the game, he's like, "Oh, Cucurella, I expect you to sit alongside Caicedo." At certain points of the game, he goes, "Actually, yeah, I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get James to drop back in. I'm gonna get Enzo to drop back in, and Cucurella, you're gonna be the only one in that sort of half space next to Palmer." But sometimes he's like, "Okay, actually, I want you to confuse the defense, but end up in this sort of like 3-1, 5-1 formation." So Cucurella, though, might not play as many games as last season. There was so much pressure on him. It obviously played the Euros, like Parma and a few others, played the whole season, played the Club World Cup. It's a lot of pressure on a very important player. So Hatta will play some games, but Cucurella is a really strong asset in this Chelsea side, and I think he will pick up a lot of goals as well. So one to
There's talk of a new contract,
Colwell's,
isn't there, for Cooper,
yeah,
which is like unheard of
yeah,
at Chelsea.
yeah, especially for given his ripe old age. So I think Colwell is the one that's locked in the most, considering Chalobah, like Fofana could play on the odd game, Tosin could play the odd game. With James, Gusto, I think is more likely to get minutes. Like you said, Mitch, like, oh, there's pairings. I think Gusto is, while in the Conference League final he was not doing such a great job of tucking in. The expectation again for him is like, you're either right centre back or you're tucking in there. And last season, even he was expected to go in there. Maresca expects his fullbacks to do basically everything, so makes them good attacking outlets. So yeah, in terms of, if we to wrap up defensive assets, Colwell locked in, Cucurella most likely to get the most points attacking wise, and then Sanchez, if we round out,
Not locked in.
had a great Club World Cup final, but Chelsea were trying to sign AC Milan's goalkeeper before the Club World Cup to be their first choice. So I don't think the rumors have quietened down, but I don't think he's quite number one choice for sure. So yeah, that's the defensive stuff. I've talked for a while. Any thoughts on the attacking players here?
I mean, Palmer's obviously in that top 5 draft ranking clutch. I don't think that's too controversial. I almost think there's not a huge amount really we need to say on Palmer. I don't think there's anything we can add. He's going to be a high pick. I think it's absolutely fair enough. Neto, I think, will probably play the most minutes out of the next load of attackers. Would you agree? So I think probably warrants a good draft pick there as well. I'm trying to think where I've got him penciled at the moment. He could be like a back end of the 4th round, maybe early 5th round type player.
Yeah,
The rest, I mean, I'm not talking about the forwards right now, but the rest, your Gittins, Esteval, even Joao Pedro, I'm just concerned about actually how many minutes they're going to get over the course of a season. But I mean, Joao Pedro's kind of the segue into the forwards, I guess, because he is a forward on the game, and that inherently sort of doubles his value on draft day. Now, interestingly, you put both him and Delap in that initial 11 that I know you just penciled it in there.
yeah.
Is that because you expect to see a fair bit of that, or
I think over the course of the season they will get the most. These two will get the most minutes, but I do think that there will be times that this is kind of what's expected. We saw it in the Club World Cup, where Palmer was actually playing left wing, and I think we'll see Pedro at times tucking in, that sort of thing. I'm actually not sure that Xavi Simons is coming to Chelsea. I think potentially those are just rumours, but you never know with this club. But yeah, I do see this happening on the odd occasion, but I do see more often than not a rotation between these two. Potentially Palmer not playing every single game, and Pedro maybe playing, and then Palmer comes off the bench if we're not doing well. So I do see maybe not this exact formation every time, but in terms of most minutes, this lot. I think what's actually the most interesting here is these forward positions. I do see Delap playing a lot of minutes and doing well in this side. I think Jackson, given that he's at Chelsea, everyone's going to think, oh, well, they've signed Delap. Pedro played 3 games of the Club World Cup and was amazing. Jackson's not going to play. So I think other managers won't value him highly. He's either going to play at Chelsea or he's going to get sold to a club like Aston Villa or Newcastle. So I'd rank him slightly higher than other managers might just naturally as a think, oh, he's the third choice Chelsea striker. There's Premier League strikers who start for their clubs that I'll be ranking Jackson over on draft day.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And yeah, you're right. Neto's probably the one that's going to start most, whether it's left wing here or on this side here, and Palmer's sort of tucking in, or maybe Esteval's getting some game time on the right hand side. So Neto, you're right, is the one that's going to play the most. The ones that are sort of locked in are your Enzo, Caicedo, and Palmer, and a bit of rotation maybe for Santos, but mostly these three and Colwill are your dead certs.
Fine. But yeah, where did we all put Chelsea actually in our league table predictions? I think quite high.
I I had them fourth.
Yeah, Taz said fourth, and I said third.
Nice. I think I potentially would have pushed them further up, but I think there's going to be a point in the season where Chelsea will realise that they're probably not in the title race, or maybe it's going to be quite hard to really push these teams, and there'll be a cup competition that's just sort of ahead of them, and they think like, well, let's just focus all in on that. And that's why I think that I had them further down in the top four race.
My last very quick thing, just before we move on. So you've put Liam Delap as your one to watch. I think from any of the rankings I've seen others do and actual draft boards I've seen, João Pedro is almost universally being drafted higher than Delap. So I know it's hard to kind of conceptualize a draft board, but I mean, where are you sticking them both in right now, just off the top?
João Pedro had a fantastic Club World Cup. He had scored 2 goals in the semi-final. He changed the game in the quarter-final, and then obviously cheeky goal in the final. He's not prolific as a striker. I think that given that it was a cup competition, he upped his game to that level and was able to get that out of himself. But that's not the role he plays most often, and it's not the role I think Chelsea signed him to do. So I think Delap is the starting striker. João Pedro will rotate with him a bit. He'll rotate with Palmer a bit. He may also start on the left. I think he will also. Pedro might also play in some of the low block games. So when you need more players and the team's just set up two banks of four. But I actually think Delap is more likely over the season to score more points. He's going to play. He's going to play more. He's going to be in the striker position, Paul. Yeah, striker position more.
Where are they draft? So where you draft roughly? Where are they going on your board then?
I don't have my board properly set up. I'm waiting for the game to come out. But okay.
Than João Pedro.
Delap's higher than João Pedro. I think Delap is going to start more games at striker than João Pedro, and therefore more likely in a position to bang more goals in.
Fine. That's what the people wanted to know. Cool. Right. Let's move on to Crystal Palace. You'll be pleased to know we're not going to be moving the little men around the board for this one. As it stands right now, this is a very familiar squad board. There, to my knowledge, haven't been any key departures or really arrivals so far this summer, or certainly none that are really going to enter our minds. Sosa's new, isn't he? The new backup to Mitchell.
Left wing back. Yeah.
But because they needed cover there as a whole, I think we identified when we were looking at the squads last year that there wasn't really another player to go there. So that was a need. That was a hole in the squad that they filled. They're definitely light of another centre-back or two, given that they play with three, though we've seen, and I think we've continued from what I've seen, some of the pre-season lineups that Lerma has played a lot of minutes as a sort of backup centre-back as well. But they definitely need another one there. And also, there's still not the quietest whispers that Gay could be on his way somewhere, which would be a big, big loss for them for the way they play. And of course, Eze is the other one with a risky flag. Though it has to be said, it's been just the Eze rumours. It just feels like as fans, it's such an obvious move for him to move on. I haven't seen anything massively concrete from
yeah,
to say that he's really on the verge of, or like another club is seriously interested in him, because it's so difficult. It's most clubs in the league their squad would be improved, their 11 would be improved by having Eze in there. So the rumours will always kind of make sense in a way. But I mean, Arsenal seem to have been, they were like the big name that was getting listed off. Spurs were also thrown into the mix. So yeah, I mean, as it stands, I say that's a very stable Crystal Palace team, which should benefit them.
Yeah, it has quietened down with Eze, but given Gibbs White, so yeah, he's staying at Forest. Potentially Spurs could entertain this again. I don't know. Given that they were interested in an attacking midfielder, potentially if Eze is available, that's one they could look at again. The one I am most worried about is Gahey. He's got 1 year left on his contract. They rejected bids of like 60, 65 million last season, so they think he's valued quite highly. And if they don't sell him now, they risk losing for nothing. And I just don't think Crystal Palace are that kind of club. I think they will try and get some money at this point. Yeah, but in terms of value, I think someone like Liverpool, which we might discuss in another episode, are in desperate need of centre backs. Gomez is often injured. Kanate's got 1 year left on his deal, and Quansah they just sold. So they're in the market for centre backs, and I think Gahey could be one that slots in there. So if you do draft him, it wouldn't be the end of the world if he moves around the Premier League. But they really desperately need centre backs. Touted as Achimpong from Chelsea, which would work well. They've signed Gahey before, they've signed Chalobah on loan, Chilwell on loan, so the clubs have a good relationship. But if they're looking to play in either the Conference League or the Europa League next season, losing Gahey and replacing him with Achimpong is not strong enough to be on those like two fronts. So I think
Come up against teams like Spurs in those competitions.
I think the old Crystal Palace would have just been happy with that. But I think given that they have European football, I think they want to push their boat out a little bit. So I think a new centre back alongside Achimpong arriving in this space could happen. So one to watch out, and especially given that they are very strong defensively as well. In terms of like assets, I think Lacroix is a really good player to have in your team. He got 34 extra points, so 148 overall. He may be one that's rotated throughout the season, but it's just, yeah, Crystal Palace do have a pretty solid base. And then Munoz and Mitchell are very attacking wing backs. Munoz is often just like the right winger. So I do see the opportunity for him to be picked up on draft day. So 142 points he got last season. Let's see if he got any further. Yeah, so he would have had 156, which is a pretty good outing for a defender. Your thoughts, Mitch?
Yes, Sarr is the one I like. I think he had a really, really good season last year. His 8 goals, 6 proper assists, and I thought I thought he'd do well, but he did really well and really, really nailed down that spot. I mean, I think he may have been up in terms of the outfielders. Yeah, in terms of the attacking outfielders, anyway, midfielders, forwards, he played the most minutes, so he really nailed down that spot. He played more minutes than Mateta, more minutes than Eze. 8 goals, 6 assists. Non-penalty expected goal involvements of 0.74 per 90 is elite level.
Yeah,
Now it's obviously the only season he's got anywhere near that season. When he was at Watford, even it was about 1 in 2. So if he can do that again, then we have to be taking him quite high up on draft day. And similarly to last season, when we were saying, well, Elise's gone now, so Eze's kind of he's got to step up and become the main man. If Eze was to go, then Sarr's then got to step up and carry on that kind of output. I'm almost certain they wouldn't rely on the supporting cast to fill in the gap that Eze leaves. They'd have to go back
agreed.
to the market.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm really strong on Sarr, and there's obviously no rumours there. He's fairly settled, fairly robust. He's playing on the same side as Munoz, so we know that they favour that kind of right side tilt. Munoz compared to Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell could almost sit in as a left centre back, I guess, if they needed to. He's so Sarr benefits from that as well. So yeah, I'm high on Sarr. Mateta I'm really high on too. He wasn't in the upper echelons of like 20 goals and whatnot, but 14 goals off the back of 16 goals the season before is solid. And people must hear me say over and over and over again, do not underestimate how difficult it is in the Premier League to score 15 goals in a league season, even if you're a forward. So to kind of come off the back and go from 16 to 14, his non-expected goal involvements per 90, 0.61, so slightly higher than it was the season before. He's going to be a first round pick for me.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Like in this Crystal Palace side, whereas I think there's a lot of focus on like those front three to basically just like do all of the vibes on their own. Because with the rest of us, we're just gonna like keep settled. We're gonna keep the shape, and obviously there's like interesting players with Borton and Munoz bombing on that sort of thing. But it's like Sarr, Eza, and Mateta. It's like kick it up to them. Can you all do it? And Mateta for 2 seasons in a row has done it. So yeah, I agree with you. First round pick, given the striker pool, for me.
And looking at our sort of Premier League table predictions, I've obviously gone the highest for Palace, and that's probably where, I'm probably another one that I'm a bit stronger on. And I think Glasner's a really solid manager.
Agreed.
Okay, and then last for this episode, and one that I don't think we'll spend too much time on, is Everton. And for those looking on screen, a very, very thin looking squad, particularly up the top end. Does mean, unlike some of the other teams, we can be pretty certain what their starting 11 is going to be week in, week out, unless we get another big arrival. There have been some rumours of a Grealish loan move there, which I can't really see, but I think beggars can't really be choosers at the moment when it comes to Grealish's agents. And the amount of analysis that's been done looking at the Everton defenders, particularly Tarkowski with the new point changes, I sort of feel has been done to death. You know, it put Tarkowski up onto 149, 44 extra points was massive. So he's definitely going to be on the draft boards. Otherwise, that defensive group seems pretty settled. There's no real rumours of a departure for Branthwaite again this year. Anything to say on the back end of them? No?
No, there's 4 solid defenders there. So I think that, but they're all just basically rotation with the waiver pile, given what the fixtures are ahead of them. But you can basically bank on those 4 starting, I'd say.
Yeah. And then up top, I think McNeil's going to be on draft boards. He's very solid when he's on the pitch. He proved that last season. And Jai as well, I think, will be somewhere towards the back end of draft boards. And then probably the more exciting one is the fact that they've signed a new forward, Barry, who I covered in the sort of hidden gem signing episode. We've seen a bit of Beto playing at number 9 in pre-season, but I think that's Barry's spot ultimately for the sort of money they've signed him on, and should be an upgrade on the other guys they've got there, having finally jettisoned Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, any thoughts on their forwards? Or is it...
I think it is a wait and see, but I think given, again, like we did with Brentford, given what you see in front of you, you've got to think that like potentially there is an opportunity to play 4-4-2 here, because there's no wingers behind McNeil, because Harrison's also gone back as well to Leeds. But there's no one behind in Jai. So could Barry and Beto be playing together? I think there's potential. Beto played a lot of games towards the end of last season, so you got 15 starts, 8 goals, which is not a bad return for a Premier League striker. So I don't think that Beto is like fully resigned to the bench and just playing one up top. I think given the cogs that they have, potentially it's going to be 4-4-2.
Yeah, I mean, you had them actually quite strong. You had them in 13th. I had them in 16th. And Draft FC Taz actually had them getting relegated in 18th, which I think their strongest 11 is more than good enough to survive. As we'll see when we eventually get to the promoted teams, there are some bad teams coming into the league again this year.
Yeah, Everton are 14th, mostly because there are teams worse. And we might discuss them. I think we haven't got to any of them apart from Brentford. So I think it's more that, and I think David Moyes will just get some structure together that will keep them going.
I'll say the only final thing I would say, there is a bit of a poetry to Moyes managing Everton with a 4-4-2 in their shiny new stadium that they've called the Hill Dickinson Stadium in 2025. What on earth? If you're an Everton fan, you must, like, when you get into your season ticket holder, you go and sit in your nice new seat, lovely new stadium. Then you look down and Moyes is lining you up in a 4-4-2 with great.
Gone are the Carlo Ancelotti days, right?
Oh God, long gone. My word. That's going to be one of those little facts, isn't it, that you tell your kids,
Yeah.
little trivia thing that you tell your kids,
Yeah.
and they're like, Ancelotti managed Everton. Let's wrap things up there. Thank you for joining us on another episode looking at these. Obviously, we're not even halfway done, my goodness. So there's still plenty to come from us. In the next one, we'll do Fulham, Liverpool, City and United. So 3 big boys in that one. As ever, if you like the content,
And Man United. 3 big boys and Man United.
As ever, if you enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, do follow on whichever podcast platform you are listening on if you've managed to stay along just in your ears. Give us a follow on X at draft_FC. Of course, the game will be live and kicking by now, so do head over to draftfc.co.uk and check out what we're offering for you there. And until next time, stay shook.
Stay shook.